All right, let's dive into this becoming indistractable thing.
Okay.
Sounds like, we've got Nir Eyal's book, right?
Yes.
And the goal is to really kind of like take control, of our attention and I guess make better choices about how we're, spending our time. Something that really hit me in the book was this idea that distraction, it actually starts with us.
Right.
We always point the finger at our phones, at notifications, all this stuff around us.
Environment.
Right. Yeah. But Ariel's saying it's really more about how we're responding to those things.
It is. It's about recognizing that we have a lot more control than we think we do.
So you can be in like a quiet room.
You can be in a quiet room with no distractions.
Right.
But if you're anxious, if you're bored, if you're restless, your mind is going to find something to latch onto.
So then how do we figure out what that thing is?
That's where this idea of root causes comes in.
Okay.
Versus proximate causes. Right?
So something different.
Approximate cause is, let's say that urge to check your phone.
Yeah.
That might not be because of the notification itself. That's just a trigger,
Right.
The real reason you're reaching for that phone is maybe something deeper.
Okay.
Maybe you're lonely. Maybe you're, trying to avoid doing something, procrastinating on a challenging task.
Yeah, for sure.
Those underlying feelings, those are the root causes.
That's interesting.
Of your distraction.
Well, it's like detective work almost.
It is.
Like you got to figure out.
You have to become a detective of your own mind.
Why am I doing this?
Yeah.
What am I really after here?
Exactly.
This reminds me of all those times I just find myself scrolling on social media.
Yeah.
It's like, is that like a classic example?
It could be.
Trying to escape something?
What are you feeling right before you pick up that phone? Are you bored? Are you stressed? Are you feeling disconnected?
Maybe.
So then what are some healthier ways to deal with those feelings instead of escaping into social media?
Yeah.
Maybe, connect with a friend, go for a walk,
right.
Engage in a hobby you enjoy.
I like that. Find a more fulfilling alternative.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the thing is, it's hard, right?
Yeah.
Our brains, they aren't always wired to make these healthy choices.
Right.
LL talks about this thing called negativity bias, right?
Okay.
And then rumination.
Wait, hold on.
And then hedonic adaptation.
Can you break those down for me?
Of course. So negativity bias is our brains are wired to focus more on the negative experiences than the positive ones.
Right. So
it's you get 10 good reviews and 1 bad review. You focus on that 1 bad one.
Yeah.
And then rumination.
Okay.
Is that like a loop of negative thoughts? Like you keep replaying these negative experiences over and over and over?
Okay.
And then hedonic adaptation.
Okay.
Is we get used to good things really fast. You get a new gadget, you're excited for a week. And then
the excitement wears off.
Yeah, and then you're looking for the next thing.
Oh, man. So it's like
you're always chasing the next high.
Our brain's working against us?
Kinda.
How do we, combat that?
Well, that's where some of the tools and techniques come in.
Okay, like what?
So you mentioned wanting to control your attention, right? Make deliberate choices about your time.
Yeah.
This one technique he talks about is called timeboxing.
Okay.
Have you heard of that?
I'm a big to-do list person.
It's beyond the to-do list.
Okay.
It's about scheduling everything.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Every activity in your day.
Interesting.
Not just work, but leisure.
Okay.
Family time, exercise.
So actually putting it on my calendar.
Like blocking off time in your calendar for reading.
Right.
For going for a walk, for having dinner.
So instead of hoping I'll find the time,
you're making a commitment.
Making a commitment to it.
And it all starts with understanding your values.
Values, okay.
What truly matters most to you.
Yeah.
Is it family? Is it learning? Personal growth?
It's so easy to let those things slide, though.
They should be the first things on your schedule.
Okay.
Those are the non-negotiables.
That makes sense.
These deserve dedicated time.
I feel like I'm always so pulled in different directions. I end up neglecting the things that really matter.
That's where time boxing can be transformative.
Okay.
So, think about your typical workday. How could you incorporate time boxing?
Okay.
To minimize distractions and achieve better focus? What are those key activities you want to prioritize?
My biggest challenge is email. It's like this constant battle to stay on top of it. And then social media too.
Yeah.
It just sucks up so much time.
It does.
When I have a free moment, I just find myself scrolling.
So how about maybe, designate specific blocks of time each day.
Okay.
For checking and responding to emails.
So like...
And then maybe schedule like a short break for social media, but with a clear time limit.
So it's like I'm being more intentional.
You are. It's about being more intentional.
Even about those things that tend to pull me off track.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, that's like that.
Eyal gives an example in the book. He talks about how he and his wife schedule time.
Okay.
For housework.
Really?
Because they value equality in their marriage.
That's a really good example.
It's about aligning your time with your values.
I like that.
No matter how big or small those activities might seem.
So it could be housework.
It could be.
Could be anything.
Anything.
I'm definitely getting a lot to think about here.
Good.
You know, I'm really eager to like learn some more about, you know, those specific tactics for tackling distractions.
We'll definitely do that.
I know the book talks about external triggers.
It does, and we'll get to that. We'll get to those
now
that we have a good foundation for understanding those internal triggers.
Right.
And this idea of time boxing, we can move on to the external ones.
Okay, I'm ready for it.
All right.
Let's do it.
Let's go.
Okay, so we've talked about how distractions start with us, and we've explored some tools like time boxing, you know, to kind of help us manage those.
Yes.
Now I want to like bring this to the workplace.
Okay.
Because, you know, it feels like a whole other beast.
It is.
When you're dealing with colleagues, endless emails.
Right.
And like those dreaded open office plans.
Open office plans are the worst.
The worst. So, you know, is there something deeper going on there?
Well, the book highlights a study that found a correlation between specific work environments and depression.
Wow. Really?
Yeah. And it wasn't about the work itself being inherently depressing. It was about the conditions.
Yeah.
You know, these jobs with high expectations, low control over how you manage your time.
Yeah.
Those are the main culprits.
That makes sense.
So when you feel constantly pressured, but lack the autonomy to manage your workload, it takes a toll.
Yeah.
And when people feel that way, they turn to distractions to cope.
It's like almost an escape.
It is. It's an escape from those feelings.
From that stress.
Of stress, of lack of control.
So it's not just about those external triggers. It's about like the underlying work environment.
Exactly.
That's kind of feeding into it.
Eyal calls it a cycle of responsiveness.
Oh, okay.
Companies create cultures of constant availability, demand immediate responses, which then leads to burnout.
Right, and then that just creates more distractions.
Which in turn fuels the company's need for even more responsiveness.
Oh, so it's like this vicious cycle.
It's a vicious cycle.
That's exhausting just thinking about it.
It is exhausting. But the book does offer some hope.
Okay, good. I need that.
Yeah, there are examples of companies that have broken out of this cycle.
Oh, like who? Give me some examples.
One compelling example is the Boston Consulting Group, BCG.
Okay, yeah, I've heard of them.
You know, they're known for their high-powered consulting work.
Right.
Demanding hours, intense pressure.
Definitely.
But they were also facing high turnover rates.
That's surprising.
Right. Employee burnout. So a researcher named Leslie Perlow was brought in to study their culture.
Okay.
And she challenged the teams to find a way to give everyone at least one night off.
Wow.
Per week.
One night off completely.
Completely disconnect from work.
I bet there was some pushback.
Of course there was pushback.
People were probably like, no way, that's impossible.
People were skeptical. They thought it would be impossible to meet client demands, manage workloads with this restriction. But they agreed to try it as an experiment.
Okay, so how did it go?
So to make this work, the teams had to communicate more openly about their workloads, challenges, individual needs.
Right, so they actually had to
They had to prioritize.
Prioritize.
More effectively, learn to delegate.
So it kind of forced them to work smarter, not harder?
Exactly, and the results were impressive.
Okay, tell me more.
Not only did they give everyone predictable time off.
Wow.
It improved teamwork, communication, job satisfaction.
That's amazing.
It was a win-win.
So, I mean, BCG is a huge company, though.
Right.
Do you think this could work for smaller teams?
The key takeaway here isn't about the one-night-off policy.
Okay.
It's about creating this culture of psychological safety.
Psychological safety, okay.
Where people feel comfortable speaking up, asking for help, setting boundaries.
That makes sense.
And that's something any team can work towards.
Right, regardless of size.
Yes.
I love that idea of psychological safety.
Yeah.
You know, it makes sense that when people feel safe to be open, it creates like a more supportive and productive environment.
It does. And there are practical strategies
for
cultivating this.
Like what?
One thing is to have regular team meetings specifically for discussing these issues.
Oh, interesting.
Create a space for people to share concerns about workload, distractions, anything that's impacting their work.
I like that.
So it's not just about getting things done.
It's about, like, the well-being of the team, too.
It is. It's about creating a supportive environment where people feel heard.
Yeah.
And another example of the book is Slack.
Wait, Slack, isn't that, like...
The communication tool?
The communication tool.
Yes.
I feel like that's a source of distraction.
It can be, if not used mindfully.
Right.
But it's also a company.
Right, yeah.
And they're known for having a strong company culture.
Okay, so how do they manage that?
They practice what they preach. Their slogan is, work hard and go home. And they mean it. Their offices are reportedly pretty much empty by 6:30 p.m.
Wow.
Even though they're a tech company.
That's impressive.
And they actually discourage logging back on after hours.
Oh, interesting.
They encourage employees to disconnect and recharge.
Okay.
And guess what? They use pre-commitment strategies to make this happen.
So they're, like, using their own technology to help their employees set boundaries.
Yes, their do not disturb feature.
Oh, right.
It's a key part of their culture.
Okay.
Employees can turn it on whenever they need to focus.
So those notifications don't tempt them.
It automatically activates after hours.
Wow, that's smart.
And it all goes back to that psychological safety.
Okay.
Encouraging open communications, clear expectations.
Yeah.
People feel empowered to set boundaries without fear of repercussions.
I'm seeing how all of this applies not just to, like, us individually, but to, like, whole companies. You know, it's inspiring to see, like, BCG, Slack, creating these cultures that prioritize well-being.
They are.
What about kids, though?
That's a great question.
They're growing up in this world of distraction.
They are.
How do we apply all this to help them navigate that?
That's a crucial question.
Yeah.
And it's something we'll definitely dive into in the final part.
Okay, looking forward to it.
Of our deep dive.
All right, so we've covered a lot in this deep dive.
Yes, we have.
You know, we've talked about the roots of distraction. We've talked about how this plays out in the workplace. Now I want to talk about kids.
Okay.
You know, raising kids in this hyper-connected world.
That's a big one.
Yeah, it's like this constant battle to help them, you know, navigate all these distractions.
It is a challenge. But Eyal doesn't just offer advice for adults.
Okay.
He dedicates a good portion of the book to, you know, addressing the unique challenges of raising kids.
I feel like a lot of us parents feel like we're fighting a losing battle.
It can feel that way.
Especially when it comes to technology.
It's easy to fall into that trap of blaming the devices, right?
Yeah, like it's at the phone's fault.
Thinking they're inherently addictive, ruining our kids' attention spans.
But is there any truth to that?
Eyal challenges that assumption.
Okay.
He cites research that shows that, you know, teenagers haven't really changed that much.
Really?
Throughout history.
Yeah. So it's not that. Like, their brains are different.
It's not about their biology. It's the environment they're growing up in.
It's the world around them.
Exactly. They're bombarded with distractions, less opportunity for unstructured play.
Yeah.
There's constant pressure to be connected.
So it's no wonder they can't focus.
Right. And instead of just saying no more screens, he encourages us to understand why kids are drawn to these distractions in the first place.
So it's that root cause thing again?
It is, those root causes.
Okay.
He draws on this theory called self-determination theory.
Okay.
Which suggests that all humans, including kids, need three things to thrive: autonomy, competence, and relatedness.
Break those down for me.
Okay. Autonomy is about feeling like you have control over your own life, your choices. Competence is about feeling capable and successful.
Right.
Relatedness is about feeling connected.
Makes sense.
To others.
So how does this relate to kids and distraction?
The theory is that when these needs aren't being met in real life, kids seek them out elsewhere.
Like through
distractions, video games, social media.
Oh, interesting.
In those virtual worlds, they feel a sense of control, mastery, belonging.
So it's like filling a void.
It is. It's filling a void.
Okay.
So if we want to help kids become more indistractable, we need to focus on creating environments where those needs are met in healthy ways.
So it's like addressing the root causes again.
Addressing those root causes.
Not just the symptom.
Not just the symptoms.
And those tools and techniques we talked about.
Yeah.
Could those be used for kids too?
Absolutely. Like timeboxing.
Okay.
It's not just about scheduling work tasks, right? It's about allocating time for all the important things.
Like playtime.
Playtime, family time, even screen time.
Okay.
If they have a say in how their time is structured, they're more likely to buy into it.
So it's not about just like setting arbitrary limits. It's more about working with them.
It's about empowerment, not control.
I like that.
But those external triggers are still a big problem.
Yeah, like what do we do about that?
The good news is that those hacking back strategies can be just as effective for kids.
Okay, give me an example.
You can create tech-free zones.
Oh, right.
In the house, like the dinner table, bedrooms.
Yeah, we do that.
You do?
No phones at the dinner table.
That's great.
It's made a big difference.
It has.
Okay, what else?
Encourage them to turn off notifications for certain apps.
Right.
Especially during homework time.
Yeah.
When they need to focus.
And what about parental controls?
Parental controls can be helpful.
Okay.
But use them thoughtfully.
Okay.
The goal isn't to lock down the devices completely.
Right.
But to create a framework that supports their self-regulation.
Okay.
And talk to them about why these limits are important.
So it's not just about like setting the rules.
It's about having that dialogue.
Yeah.
And it's not just about individual strategies. It's about changing the social norms around technology.
Interesting.
Like, encourage them to be mindful of their phone use in social situations.
Oh, yeah. I'm guilty of that sometimes.
Yeah.
I'll be hanging out with friends and I'll just pull out my phone.
It's like a bad habit.
It is.
It is a habit. The book makes a comparison to how society tackled smoking in public.
Okay.
It wasn't just about willpower. It was about creating a social norm.
Right, yeah.
Where smoking indoors just wasn't acceptable.
So we need to do the same thing with phones.
We need to create a similar norm around phone use.
Okay, so how do we do that?
Teach kids that it's rude.
Okay.
To be constantly checking your phone when you're with others.
Yeah, like don't phub people.
Phubbing.
Phubbing.
Yeah, it's a funny term.
I like that.
Phone and snubbing.
Yeah, it's catchy.
It gets a point across.
Okay, this has been great.
It has.
I feel like I have a whole new understanding of distraction.
Yeah.
Not just as like a personal struggle, but as something that's like embedded in our culture.
It is.
The world we're raising our kids in.
And I think that's the power of Eyal's book. It's not just about quick fixes.
Right.
It's about giving us this framework for understanding this problem.
So as we wrap up, what's like the one key takeaway?
We're not at the mercy of our distractions.
Okay.
We have the power to choose how we spend our time and attention.
Yeah.
It starts with understanding our values, setting boundaries, and using these techniques to create a life that's aligned with what matters most.
Beautifully said. We encourage everyone to check out the full book.
Yes.
Indistractable.
Indistractable by Nir Eyal.
For more insights. Until next time, stay focused, be kind to yourselves.
Yes.
And remember, you have the power to choose.